This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. We are glad to have you with us. I'm Roby Brock. Thank you for watching. I am joined by Rex Nelson, senior editor of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Haircut, clean shaven, in studio. I mean, it's almost normal.
COVID must be over. It's really not totally over yet, but it feels like it again, Roby. It's good to be back after, 14 months of visiting with you over video, sitting at my house.
It's nice. And I know the back of your neck feels a lot better, not having all that hippie hair on the back of it there.
Yeah, you're the one who accused me of looking like an aging Lyndon Johnson after he left the White House.
Yeah, I'll bring it home. Maybe Nelson, or maybe Winthrop Rockefeller post-governorship there. You've been traveling around the state quite a bit. I guess you're spending all your stimulus money at all these restaurants that you didn't get to go to for the last few months. Is that what you're doing to get around? Just spending all your money on places you couldn't go?
I'm not spending all my money, but I'm catching up on lost time. I mean, I basically shut down my Arkansas travels for 14 months, so it's good to be back on the road. This past week, I spent 3 days in Bentonville. And you know, when you don't live with it every day, it's amazing. It had been about 18 months since I had been there. The construction, I mean, it's, you know this, but it's just a different world. I was totally amazed in just the year and a half since I'd spent some serious time there, what's happened.
I mean, I'm up there a lot, and I can, from 1 week to the next, and I can go, where did that building come from? Wasn't that a cow pasture at one point? You know, stuff like that.
I mean, you look at the footprint, for instance, of that new Walmart home campus, and it's just, you realize how big that is going to be. That obviously is going to be unlike anything this state has ever seen.
Let's talk some politics. I'm going to begin with a series of blistering columns that you have written lately about the state of the Republican Party, especially in Arkansas. One was called Pity the Governor. The other was called Cowards and Clowns. I'm going to quote you from a couple of them here. You say that some of the legislators are like that guy we know back home, the loudmouth who shows up at the coffee shop early each morning and bores everyone with his views. In this case, we're letting those people run things. Did you get a lot of attaboys from these columns, or did you get a lot of screw you from these columns?
Some of both, but you know, I worked, Roby, in my first Republican campaign full-time in 1984. There were so few identifiable Republicans in 1984 in the state of Arkansas. We all knew each other on a first-name basis. And I felt strongly then, and I feel strongly now, that one-party dominance is not good for the state of Arkansas. So Republicans, beginning with that 2010 election cycle over the past decade, gained solid majorities. It becomes a solidly red state. But in the process, what happened? I think we've created a Frankensteins Monster now by doing that.
In what way? Do you think the policy goes too far? Do you think there's not enough focus on the state issues that should be there? Are we too nationalized with things?
Absolutely. I don't really consider many of these members to be true Republicans, people who believe in a more fair tax code, people who believe in efficient government, getting the most out of your government employees. Instead, what they are doing is they are taking cookie-cutter legislation. Let's call it what it is. It's stuff that's being introduced in every state by far right-wing groups who are doing it for fundraising purposes. I've raised political money. You've raised political money. You know you need a bad guy. You need a boogeyman. So basically, these groups are scaring people to raise funds, and one of their things is to get legislators back in individual states to introduce these things, whether they're transgender rights, whether they're voting rights. All of these things we saw introduced were things you were seeing all across the country. It really had nothing to do with good government in Arkansas. We wasted a lot of time in this session when we should have been focused again on good government, efficient government.
Do you not think that some legislators, though, truly believe that they're doing the right thing?
I think a few truly believe. Those are the groups that I call the know-nothings. But I think a lot of them are into the groups that I call the cowards. They know better. They know this is not good for the state of Arkansas. But they're so afraid of those loudmouths back in their district, who I don't think is the majority, that they are cowards, they will not stand up to people in their own party. We've got to change that. Hopefully we hit rock bottom this year and we begin on the way back up in the next session. I know I've talked to a number of business leaders across the state. They realize how bad this was for economic development in Arkansas, and I think you'll see some of these people have strong opponents in their own Republican primary come the spring of next year.
So one of the factors that will play into a lot of that is just the changing demographics of Arkansas. This is something else you've written about. It's something I've talked about and been watching for the last 2 or 3 years as census numbers have poured in. Arkansas, to kind of summarize, has gained about 100,000 people over the last 10 years in population, about half what we've seen in national growth. A lot of that, though, has been Washington, Benton County, Pulaski County, and the surrounding counties, and a little bit up in northeast Arkansas with Jonesboro to Paragould. What's happening in rural Arkansas, and what do you think the stakes are?
I think what we are seeing is continued population loss in rural Arkansas. And I don't see any magic bullets for suddenly turning that around. What we have to remember is that those areas of rural Arkansas that are losing population are still vitally important to the Arkansas economy, because agriculture is such a huge part of our economy in Arkansas, whether it's cattle, whether it's poultry, whether it's row crops, whether it's forestry. But all of those take far less people than they used to because of efficiency, so you don't need as many people living there. So the areas are still important, but the jobs aren't there anymore. So I think we see Arkansas continuing to become more urbanized as a state. I think for many years to come, the only 3 real growth areas that we'll see in Arkansas: Northwest Arkansas, the Little Rock metropolitan area, and what I now call the Jonesboro-Paragould corridor, because as you know, that's grown up now all completely between Jonesboro and Paragould.
Yeah, a much shorter gap between those two cities than there was, say, 10 years ago. So I guess to a little bit of that, in Washington, D.C. this week, and you've covered Washington beat for a number of years as the Washington reporter there, our congressional delegation was split on the January 6th commission there, this bipartisan January 6th commission. Womack and Hill, in 2 of these populated areas that you're talking about, voted for it. Westerman and Congressman Crawford voted against it. Did it surprise you? We don't see very many splits in our congressional delegation.
It really doesn't. I mean, again, these are the growth areas that Womack and Hill represent. They're the areas where business really has a stronger influence. They're the areas, quite frankly, with a higher percentage of educated people with post-high school degrees, whether they're associate's degrees, a bachelor's degree, or even higher than that. So given all of those demographics, that doesn't surprise me. South Arkansas, East Arkansas, the areas generally represented by Congressman Westerman, Congressman Crawford, continue to lose population. They continue to become more rural, actually, rather than more urban. And it's where, for lack of a better term, Trumpism is the strongest. I mean, Crawford even voted, you remember, on January 6th, on the night of the insurrection, not to verify election results for a couple of states.
We did a poll over in the 1st District of probably about last election cycle, not 2020, but 2018, of Republican primary voters, and Donald Trump had a 96% approval rating among Republican voters, and we had a plus or minus 4 on the poll, so it could have been 100%. I mean, in terms of support for Trump in the Republican primary. Yeah, and Congressman Crawford is so scared of those people. In the halls of power, I'm just being as honest as I can, in Washington, he's virtually a non-entity, so we see a huge geographical area of Arkansas, which for all practical purposes is without any representation in Washington, D.C., because he's such a non-entity. I'll have to offer him some more equal time to counter that, which he was on last week. Let's move to the lieutenant governor's race. Everybody wants to be lieutenant governor in the state of Arkansas, apparently. The crowd keeps getting...
That's because they can't raise the money to compete with Sarah Huckabee Sanders for governor, so
this is true.
You drop down to the lieutenant governor's race.
Why do you think that the lieutenant governor's race is so crowded?
I think people are positioning themselves for maybe a future run 8 years down the line. I mean, you look ahead, and a lot of these people are looking a long way ahead now, thinking that we will see 4 and very probably, I think, 8 years of a Sanders governorship. It's being pragmatic.
All right. He's Rex Nelson. He's senior editor with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Always good to hear your opinions and get your take. And nice to know that you haven't lost your opinions in the pandemic here. So thank you so much, Rex. Good to be with you. All right. We're back with Ray Hanley and Shannon Newton right after this.